The DOJ just dropped 3.5 million pages of Epstein files, and buried inside them is the man Keir Starmer personally chose to represent Britain to Donald Trump. What those files say about him should end a prime minister. On January 30th, 2026, the United States Department of Justice released the most explosive document dump in the history of the Epstein scandal. And while the world expected to find celebrities, royals, and billionaires, what Britain found was worse. It found its own ambassador to Washington, Peter Mandelson, Keir Starmer's hand-picked envoy to the Trump White House. A man the DOJ files describe as Epstein's self-declared best pal, a man who received $75,000 in payments from a convicted pedophile, a man who, while serving as a senior cabinet minister inside Gordon Brown's government, forwarded classified British intelligence directly to Jeffrey Epstein, a registered sex offender, by personal email, not once, not twice, repeatedly, over years. And Keir Starmer knew about the Epstein connection before he appointed him. His own vetting confirmed it. He appointed him anyway. If that sentence didn't stop you, read it again. This story is still developing. New documents are being released, a Metropolitan Police investigation is underway, and Starmer's government is fracturing in real time. If you want to stay ahead of every new revelation as it breaks, subscribe now. We cover this so you don't have to piece it together from 20 different sources. Let me show you exactly what Mandelson leaked, because this isn't a vague allegation. The files contain specific emails, specific dates, specific content. This is what a national security breach looks like in writing. June 13, 2009. A top-secret internal memo lands on Mandelson's desk. Subject, business issues. Contents, labor's tax policy plans and $20 billion in proposed asset sales. Eyes-only material destined for the Prime Minister. Within hours, Mandelson forwards it to Jeffrey Epstein, a private American citizen with zero role in British government, with a note reading, "Interesting note that's gone to the PM." That's how he described leaking cabinet-level intelligence to a pedophile, like he was forwarding a restaurant recommendation. December 2009, Mandelson emails Epstein about the government's flagship banker's bonus tax, tells him he's trying hard to amend it, then suggests JP Morgan boss Jamie Dimon should call Chancellor Alastair Darling and, his word, mildly threaten him to reverse the policy. According to Darling's own published memoirs, that call was made, the threat was delivered. Mandelson had apparently run a pressure campaign against his own government's economic policy, coordinated through Jeffrey Epstein. March 31, 2010. Mandelson receives confidential minutes of a private meeting between Chancellor Darling and Larry Summers, director of the U.S. National Economic Council. Classified diplomatic and economic intelligence. He forwards it to Epstein within 5 minutes of receiving it. May 9, 2010. Mandelson emails Epstein, "Sources tell me €500 billion bailout almost complete." This message was sent hours before European governments publicly announced the biggest financial intervention in the history of the Eurozone, a deal designed to prevent the Greek debt crisis from collapsing the entire European economy. Advanced knowledge of that announcement could have moved global markets by billions. It went to a man with connections to foreign intelligence services. May 10, 2010, Gordon Brown's final day as Prime Minister. Mandelson emails Epstein, "Finally got him to go today." Brown resigns hours later. Mandelson had apparently been feeding Epstein real-time intelligence on the internal collapse of the British government at its most sensitive moment, and in a separate email that same day, he appears to reveal to Epstein the existence of a classified underground tunnel between 10 Downing Street and the Ministry of Defense. A security detail so sensitive it sits outside any public briefing, sent to a convicted sex offender by personal email. Now here is where this stops being a story about Mandelson and becomes a story about Keir Starmer. Starmer nominated Mandelson as U.S. ambassador in December 2024. Mandelson took the post in February 2025. Before the appointment, Starmer's team ran a vetting process. This is confirmed. That vetting, Starmer told Parliament himself, revealed Mandelson's ongoing friendship with Epstein. Not a historical footnote, not a minor connection, an ongoing friendship. Starmer knew. And he sent him to Washington anyway. His justification? He needed a political heavyweight. Someone with the weight, the connections, the reputation to be taken seriously by Trump's administration on trade, tariffs, and the special relationship. And on paper, Mandelson had that weight. What Starmer didn't account for, or chose not to account for, was that the DOJ files would eventually be released. That they would contain not a manageable old friendship, but $75,000 in payments, leaked cabinet secrets, market-moving intelligence passed to a pedophile, and emails that read like a foreign intelligence operation run from inside the British government. The question that is now eating Starmer's premiership alive is a simple one. What exactly did vetting find, and what did it miss? If vetting revealed the financial payments and the leaked documents, and Starmer appointed him anyway, he is complicit in concealment. If vetting missed all of it, the vetting was so catastrophically inadequate that a national security threat walked straight into the most sensitive diplomatic posting in Britain's foreign policy. There is no version of either answer that is survivable for long. Mandelson has since admitted to Parliament that he lied about the full extent of his Epstein relationship during the vetting process, making Starmer either a prime minister who was deceived by his own ambassador or one who knew and looked away. Within 48 hours of the DOJ release, the damage was structural. Morgan McSweeney, Starmer's chief of staff, described by insiders as his political brain and enforcer, resigned, accepting responsibility for advising the Mandelson appointment. Tim Allen, Starmer's communications director, followed the next day. Anas Sarwar, leader of Scottish Labour, became the first senior party figure to publicly call for Starmer to step down. "The distraction needs to end," Sarwar said. "The leadership in Downing Street has to change." Starmer's response was defiant. "After having fought so hard for the chance to change our country, I'm not prepared to walk away from my mandate." He stayed. He's still staying, even as the numbers around him tell a story of terminal collapse that started long before Mandelson ever became the headline. YouGov, January 2026, net favorability -57, the lowest of any prime minister in 50 years, except Liz Truss, who lasted 45 days. Just 18% of Britons view Starmer favorably. 75% do not. These numbers were recorded before the Mandelson crisis broke. MRP projections from More in Common, January 2026. Reform UK on track for 381 seats and a majority of 112. Labour collapsing to 85 seats, a loss of 326 from the election they won just 19 months ago. From the largest parliamentary majority of the century to historic wipeout in under 2 years. Ladbrokes gives Starmer a 71% chance of being replaced as Labour leader before the end of 2026. Odds slashed to 1 in 3. 93% of bets placed on him leaving this year. The bookmakers have rendered their verdict. Angela Rayner, publicly supportive, privately positioned, is the favorite to succeed him. The queue is forming. The silence from those who haven't ruled anything out speaks louder than any cabinet social media post. But here is what the political coverage keeps missing. This is not simply a story about one bad appointment. This is a story about what Epstein had access to through Britain's most powerful political network for over a decade. Mandelson was forwarding classified British cabinet intelligence to a man with documented connections to foreign intelligence services. Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, had confirmed links to Mossad. Alexander Acosta, the U.S. prosecutor who gave Epstein his original sweetheart deal, reportedly told colleagues Epstein belonged to intelligence, and running through the center of that network, apparently feeding it sensitive British government material for years, was one of the 3 architects of New Labour, trusted with the most sensitive economic intelligence in the country. Who else saw those documents? Did Epstein pass them to handlers? Did classified British Treasury intelligence end up in foreign intelligence files because of emails sent on a personal account? The Metropolitan Police investigation into misconduct in public office will pursue the criminal questions. But the intelligence question, whether Epstein was running Mandelson as a source inside the British government, whether there was systematic penetration of the British cabinet through his network, that requires something the police cannot provide. It requires an intelligence inquiry. And nobody in power is yet calling for one. Gordon Brown has written to police describing Mandelson's behavior as inexcusable and unpatriotic. He notes that no departmental record of the leaked documents can be found, consistent with Mandelson deliberately using personal email to bypass government systems and leave no official trace. One senior Whitehall source told journalists this week, if he had been a civil servant, his door would have been kicked in by now. 3 events in the coming weeks determine whether Starmer survives. First, the internal government communications about the Mandelson appointment are being released. Vetting reports, internal messages, discussions about what was known and when. If those documents show the warnings were stronger than Starmer admitted publicly, if they show his team minimizing the Epstein connection internally while claiming they were deceived externally, that's the end. Not the beginning of the end, the end. Second, the Metropolitan Police investigation continues. If Mandelson is arrested, questioned under caution, or charged with misconduct in public office, every court date becomes a Starmer story. Every new detail from those proceedings reopens the question of what the Prime Minister knew and when he knew it. Third, the May local elections. Reform UK is positioned to make historic gains in seats Labour has held for decades. If the results are catastrophic enough, and current projections suggest they will be, the parliamentary arithmetic changes decisively. The case for staying because leaving creates chaos collapses when staying guarantees electoral obliteration. At that point, the 50 MPs needed to trigger a leadership challenge under labor rules become findable. My assessment, Starmer survives until May. He does not survive what May delivers. By summer 2026, either Keir Starmer resigns on his own terms or a formal challenge begins and he is removed. Angela Rayner becomes Prime Minister, and a Labour Party elected on a promise of stability and serious government will have gone through 2 leaders in under 3 years, having handed its opponents the greatest political scandal Britain has seen in 60 years through a single appointment made in broad daylight with the Epstein connection already flagged, already known, already confirmed in vetting. Because here is the truth that cuts through all the political positioning, all the cabinet solidarity posts, all the defiant statements from the steps of Downing Street. Keir Starmer looked at a man whose best friend was Jeffrey Epstein, whose best friend paid him $75,000, whose best friend received Britain's most sensitive cabinet intelligence for years through personal emails. And Starmer's judgment was, this man can represent Britain to the world. That judgment is not recoverable. The only question left is the timing of when it ends. The appointment documents are coming. The police investigation is live. The May elections are weeks away. Every one of those is a potential breaking point, and we will cover every single one as it happens. Subscribe if you want to understand British politics at the level the mainstream coverage isn't giving you. Drop a comment below. Does Starmer make it to summer, or does he go before May? And share this with anyone still trying to work out how a government elected with the largest majority of the century fell apart this fast, because the files are still coming, and the story is far from over.